Now, how many climate skeptics does it take to change a light bulb? Answer, none. It's far too early to say whether it needs changing. But we are faced with an interesting problem today, manufactured by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Now, if that Intergovernmental Panel were to call a spade, it wouldn't, because it doesn't do simple. Instead, it would call it a one-person operated, manually controlled, foot-powered implement of simple and robust yet adequately efficacious lignometallic composition, designated primarily, though by no means exclusively, for utilization on the part of hourly paid operatives deployed in the agricultural, horticultural or constructional trades or industries, as the case may be, for purposes of carrying out such excavational tasks or duties as may, from time to time, be designated by supervisory grades as being necessary, desirable, expedient, apposite, or germane, with regard to the ongoing furtherance of the task or objective in hand, or, on the other hand, underfoot, Secretary-General. And that, by the way, is what they were talking about, a spade. First of all, the mere fact that warming has occurred does not tell us anything about what caused the warming. I've seen presentation after presentation by the bedwetters saying that there has been warming and therefore carbon dioxide is to blame. Of course, what could be causing the warming, as you see here, is Al Gore with his flamethrower on the Greenland ice sheet. Likewise, correlation need not imply causation. Just because CO2 has been going up recently and temperature has been going up recently doesn't mean the two are connected in any way. And to indicate this, I have found a most interesting climatological result. I've correlated the number of Republican senators in the upper house of the United States legislature against sunspot numbers. And it's an extremely good fit because just recently, there was an election in the United States, very few Republican senators, and no sunspots at all. It works. And finally, one of the things that the other side in this debate tends to do is to produce the most alarming projections. I mean, Al Gore with his 20-foot sea level rise. Here is what would have happened to the Houses of Parliament if we were lucky enough to get a 20-foot sea level rise. To which my reply is, and your problem is? Most of my compatriots would happily see the Houses of Parliament wash away altogether. Everything I say, I can and will, on request, verify, either in the data or with equations or in the peer-reviewed literature. So I will tell you where I got it from and how I got it. I'm very happy to answer any questions like that. The other side expect you to believe them. They say the debate is over, the science is settled, you can't argue, you've just got to believe and obey and pay and pay and pay again. Take an example. DDT, the only effective agent against the malaria mosquito, still to this day, the only one that really works, invented by a guy who was given the Nobel Prize because he saved more lives with that one invention than anybody else in history. DDT was banned 40 years ago. Before it was banned, deaths from malaria had fallen to 50,000 a year. After the ban, 1 million a year. Quite often in this field, politics comes first and science second. We must take a position based on the science and the data, and he then, and only then, lifted the ban on DDT and once again recommended it as the front line of defense against the malaria mosquito. And has he been heeded? Largely no, because those who were the descendants in political terms of those who originally had DDT banned simply weren't prepared to admit that that wrong decision had cost 40 million needless children's lives, 6 Holocausts over. And so they are still trying to ban DDT to this day, and still people are dying of malaria in altogether unacceptable numbers. And this is a tragedy caused simply by a failure to analyze policy correctly. All they had to do, instead of banning DDT, was to confine its use to the interior spraying of houses. That's where people usually get infected with malaria. If they'd eradicated the malaria from the houses, the DDT wouldn't in any way have got into the food chain. It wouldn't have done any harm to anything, but it would have spared very nearly all of those 40 million totally needless deaths. Now, those who watch what I'm doing and don't like it regularly post stuff on their websites saying that I'm lying about this. But there are 2 scientific papers from which I got the figures for how many have died as a result of the DDT ban. So I'm not just making stuff up. We want to make sure that we do not have what the Army chillingly calls collateral damage from the global policies we adopt to deal with global problems. And I'm sorry to start on this somber note, but it is very important to realize how high the stakes are, not only for us, but far more so for the poor of the world who depend upon us to get these decisions right. For it is they who pay the price, and pay the price all too often with their lives if we do not. Here is Stephen Schneider, a scientist active in the IPCC. We have to offer up scary scenarios. No, we don't. We have to offer up the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Then we have, here's another one. This is Stephen Guilbeault of Greenpeace in Britain. Global warming can mean colder, it can mean drier, it can mean wetter. That's what we're talking about, man. Here's another one. These are the Nan lies that Al Gore was found by a High Court judge in London to have perpetrated in his movie. And the judge ordered the Department of Education in Britain to circulate 77 pages of corrective guidance to every school before innocent school children could be subjected to this rubbish. Then we have the polar bears lie. And here he says, a scientific study shows for the first time they're found in polar bears that have drowned, swim in long distances up to 60 miles to find the ice. And here's the truth. That's the paper that he was citing. 4 dead polar bears. And does the paper say that they were killed by global warming? No, it does not. It says there was an unusually strong storm, and so they got swamped in the way that sometimes happens in nature. Now, we have a scientific phrase, we scientists, for this. Shit happens. So, Al baby, I'm still waiting. I challenged you to a debate 3 years ago. At every public meeting, I challenge you again. And if you go on running, don't think I'm going to let you hide. And this is just factual data taken straight from the published authorities, but which somehow never finds its way into the media because none of it fits the storyline that we're doomed. So here's the first one. That is the record of global warming over the last 9 years. Now, the pink zone at the top is what the UN predicted should be happening. The strong red line through the jiggly-uppy-downy data, that's known as the least squares linear regression trend. And what that looks to me like is a fairly hefty, and indeed it is, statistically significant rate of fall. We've had 9 years of a global cooling trend since the 1st of January 2001. So then we go on to Arctic sea ice, which follows a regular kind of sine wave. It comes and goes with the seasons. There's lots of it during the winter, not so much during the summer. Nothing particularly to worry about in that graph there. In fact, there was a temporary loss of Arctic sea ice at the summer minimum in 2007. That's the left-hand globe there. But then by 2008, it's the purple area, which is the sea ice. That's just the way the computer graphics from the satellite do it. By 2008, half of that missing ice had come back. By 2009, nearly all of it had come back. So, there is today's climate, and the extraordinary thing about it is that there's nothing extraordinary about it at all. Do we want an emissions trading scheme? No! That was pretty good, but I don't think it was quite loud enough for them to hear in Canberra. Do we want an emissions trading scheme? No! That they heard in Canberra.